There's an incredible story that goes along with these renovations, and an incredible cast of characters who made them happen. This documentary is designed to introduce you to the people who made this project successful, to document their generosity, their struggles, and the story behind their accomplishments. My name is Leah Kiser, and I'm a local painter, and from 2018 to 2020 I was the president of the Casa Grande Art Association. The Casa Grande Art Association is a group of people that enjoys the arts. A lot of them are artists themselves or craftspeople, and some people just want to help support art in our community. I joined the Art Association to be with other people who like to make things.
Well, my name is Cindy Patterson, and I'm past president of the Art Association. There's a saying, you know, the same four people sweep the church. Well, we had the same four people sweeping the church for the Art Association until we had all those committees and challenges, and what did we want to do? That was the question.
First meeting that we had, I had a whiteboard, and I had asked the membership to list off, just brainstorming, what do you want to do this year? And we created committees for those things. I said, you know, if there aren't going to be people who sign up for these committees, then we'll just erase them from the board because we're not going to be able to get them done. And I think people didn't want to erase them. I think they wanted to see something done. A lot of people volunteered. One of the things I was really excited about is that there were a lot of people that wanted to fix up the art museum. There were just so many people who jumped in and wanted to help out.
Well, they needed to do something for the fencing that was around there. It was all chain link, not art.
I had always been less than excited about the chain link fence we had around the museum, because we really we've got a beautiful building. Most communities do not have something like we have there, I think.
It kind of made it look like the people in our community didn't care about art. You know, it isn't fully the art museum's fault. I mean, they needed funding.
I'm Bob SPILLE, and I initially got involved with the museum, yes. A neighbor and I noticed that the museum was going to go dark, was going to close. And so the two of us approached them saying we would be happy to be their docents to utilize a couple of the rooms in the museum for our art studios.
This meeting with the art museum, we shared all of these projects and explained that we had planned to fundraise. Overall, they were really receptive to our proposals. Kudos to them for trusting us.
I'm not even sure that a lot of the board members even had any positive feelings that this was going to ever take place.
I had some experience raising funds through crowdsourcing with Kickstarter, and so I thought maybe we could do something like that with the art museum. I felt like the fence could be a really good opportunity to gather some excitement. If we had a really good design for it, then people would get really excited about it. And at the time, we still didn't know what the fence was going to look like, what it was going to be made of, who was going to make it, until Stan Belka got involved, and that was really kind of when things solidified. I was running our local drawing group. It was actually a pretty great group of characters in itself. One of those characters was Stan Belka. We're sitting next to each other one day, and I had remembered that he told us about a fence that he made in his yard and he went to the CAC to learn some welding so that he could build it. So I asked him, Stan, you built a fence once, right?
Well, my name's Stan Balka, and I guess I was the catalyst of several people's ideas, bringing the Art Museum, the Art Association, and the college all together to push the project.
He approached me about the project about 6 months before we started it. He wanted to make a simple fence. Yeah, stretch the truth a little bit. I said, yeah, let's do it. Because I was teaching at the college at the time and I had a bunch of students.
Jeanette Rhodes, who had planned to donate her entire estate to the museum after she passed away, starts talking about, I would love to see something done before I die.
Jeanette said, I would be happy to take this on as a project with a check, and she did so.
There was some sort of a gathering at the museum when I first met Jeanette, and Jeanette was sitting in a chair. She said, "Are you the welding guy?" And I said, "Well, I do some welding." She said, "You're the guy I want to talk to." And I'm thinking like, well, okay, I don't know who you are. She said, "I'm Jeanette Rhodes. Now I've got $10,000 and I want to build a fence around this museum, but I want it to be a showstopper."
I just kind of wanted to see what I could dream up if I put my mind to it. And so I went on my computer and I was thinking about, okay, well, what is Arizona known for? What is Casa Grande known for? And like the first thing that popped into my head was the sun. Like the sun, it's on our state flag. It's hot here. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see what things pop up with like fence designs or designs with the sun in them. And I happened to like wander into some stained glass designs, and one of them had these circles in it with like little rectangles around the outsides of the circle, and then it had these beams coming out of the circle in kind of a spiral pattern, and they had different thicknesses of line. So I started sketching some things out that were similar to that design, and then they kind of got more and more generalized over time, and I settled on one specific panel of the fence that could be rotated and flipped so that all of the panels would look a little bit different, and it would also cause a little bit of like a rolling rhythm on the fence. So that was what I submitted to Stan.
He went on his CD program and he developed down to a science half-degree angles on cutting steel and a list of materials, and it was a very difficult project.
He pulled out that drawing, I'm like, oh. Okay, so I put it on AutoCAD, I drew it up, we started cutting it from there. There were 3,500 pieces we had to cut to make that. I cut them and grind them and sand them and a lot of angles, and they went from 2 to 74 degrees. Rounded circles are made out of 4 pieces. You weld it together.
In all my years of wrought iron, I've made an awful lot of very fancy, delicate pieces of wrought iron work. And to be perfectly honest, this was the most difficult piece from the standpoint of all the different criteria to make it happen. The different thicknesses required different pieces to be fitted in such a way so they lined up in the middle of the piece, and the angles all had to be correct and filled. So it was a tremendous challenge.
The other instructors or some other department, they said, "What are you doing? There's like 1 million welds in that project." So it was a huge project.
I had thought that there would be more communication between myself and the people building it if they had said, this is not going to work. This is too complicated. I wasn't going to be like, no, you have to do it my way. They're volunteers. I wasn't going to do that. I was fully expecting Stan to come back with my design and say, could you modify it in some way? And I was totally ready for that conversation. I think then when they approved those designs and they got the steel, they cut all the pieces for the steel to fit that design. So at that point, there was no going back.
You try to gather the ideas that people have and coordinate them into something that was possible. And this was a worthwhile project. It was ever so consuming and difficult to maneuver the town council, the architectural committee, the museum, and also the college, and try to pull it all together to where it would meet approval. I mean, all those things in itself took months. The college was wonderful about letting us use all the equipment and all the supplies, the welding wire and the gas and the consumables. A lot of that they paid for.
The biggest challenge was right in the beginning when they bought the material. It was ordered heavier steel than we needed. We had a lot of substandard stuff. Bench panels 100 pounds more than it should be, so just moving them around was a bit of work. They jumped on it, so I took what they bought.
When we first got the bid on all the steel, and by the time we actually made the purchase, the price of all the materials went up substantially because we were boycotting steel from China. Tariff went up, prices went up. Budget-wise, we were behind the 8 ball from the beginning. I had thought, and I was wrong, I had thought that people would come out of the woodwork from the college, because if I was a student in the college or a teacher in the college working with students, I would want them to have on their resume from the college pictures of the fence, participation, hours logged. I would think it would be a terrific opportunity to get welding time and learn how the process of building something goes.
Originally, I was supposed to have a lot of help through the college, but sort of dried up really quickly. There were 85 welders there, so I figured I'd get like 15 of them. Even threw out extra credit. I had 4 or 5 that stuck with it, and surprisingly, they were all women, which is odd. Liberty was a character, Liberty Milligan. She was one of the women welders. Megan Wilson was another character.
I had a few of my neighbors come out from time to time, and some of the students, the kids that were out there, a couple of the young ladies, specific, it wouldn't have gotten done without that. Another one was Jim Butler.
I knew that they were working on the project, and so I volunteered to be a welder, since of course that was my main profession. I was very concerned whether it would come to fruition. And the reason for that is, having worked with volunteer projects before, the big problem is everybody's excited to start with, and then it ends up, unfortunately, to a few cherished few to finish the projects out.
There were sometimes 1 or 2 people helping, so sometimes we would end up with 5 or 6 people, but they might work for an hour or 2 and leave. And we were working 8 hours on Fridays and 8 hours on Saturdays, because that was the only time we had access to the welding area.
And I can remember, the very first one that was completed.
The first panel.
The first panel. And then suddenly, we suddenly had 5 or 6 or 7 panels. Jeanette never really got to see the final product. She came out, saw what the panels looked like, but never got to see the fence.
Tricia brought her over in the car when we were welding. She was kind of very excited, and I think she was a little bit mad because I think she knew she wouldn't see the end of it. To see it, she was very, very happy about, at least knowing that she could see that something was being done. There was a whole lot of steel there, and there were a bunch of people working. And I think
she obviously wanted it to go up overnight. The way the project was forming itself and going on, it obviously wasn't going to go up overnight.
With all of our fundraising and then the GoFundMe campaign, we raised enough money to paint the building. We raised enough money to do up the yard and get the gravel. And we had tons of volunteers come to help out with those projects as well. It was really amazing to see so many Art Association members coming together to work on something like that. And it was fun to spend time with those people and start telling jokes together, and you start, laughing together and doing something productive together.
We made friendships because we worked side by side people, and we would never have gotten to know them by bringing our art in and hanging it at a show, but we got sweaty together.
The camaraderie of working with other people who are committed to a project and not for pay. There's such a big difference of being paid for a project and volunteering for a project. There's a lot more reward and satisfaction in volunteer work than in paid work. It's nice to be paid for what you know, but being able to share what you have with other people is even better.
The frustration with not having, you would love everybody to say, oh yeah, it'd be great to have that. Here, let me help. No, that doesn't happen always. The number of times when it was Stan and I and Jim Butler and Richard out there, how many Saturday mornings were we out there, just the four of us, trying to build, a fence that is going to take how many thousand hours to complete and then erect.
I would drive 90 miles one way, 4 trips per week. It was winter time and we would work outside. I would scrub steel outside in the rain. Your joints hurt. There's only so much Bengay and braces that you could wear, which wouldn't really matter so much if there was a growing participation. But it was very difficult each weekend to pull that together. What we needed was welders, and we didn't have enough.
In the fall of 2019, I needed to take a step back, but I talked to Cindy Patterson. She was available to take over and coordinate things.
I got burnt out. I hurt. I would leave here at 6 a.m. to be there at 8 a.m. and then we would work until 4, and so I'd get home at 6. 6, 7 months. It was a while.
My involvement had gone beyond what my ability at my age was able to. I do think, though, my 5 bypasses are holding up. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Oh, Tim Gates, motorcycle man. Well, now here's a man who came in to help his best friend, Rich. And he came in as a volunteer. I mean, these people aren't making any money while they're volunteering doing this job. It's not everybody that has a friend that's as dedicated. And he became as much a part of that fence being put together as anybody.
Richard, I'd heard him talking about a big fence job that he was going to do in Casa Grande for an art museum. And I said, okay. And he said, I really need your help on it. And time went by, and I guess things got pushed back or whatever happened, but he finally started on it, and he needed a lot of help. I mean, not that he couldn't do it, he could do it. But yeah, that's how I got involved with it, Richard.
The college decided they didn't want to be part of this anymore, and I had to pick up and move. That was a challenge.
Coming into the college on the weekend type setting and starting to feel like we'd been pushed out of the way, because we came on a couple weekends and it looked like somebody was trying to consolidate our workspace, so I didn't really say anything about it. I just was there to help Richard out. And after 2 weeks coming back, and then everything literally be pushed into a pile. I'm talking about bare material and tables and everything, sawhorses, because school was getting ready to start back in session. And Richard didn't know at the time, but he wasn't going to be renewed for his contract, so they wanted him out of there. The biggest challenge for me and him was, where are we going to build the rest of this at? I called my wife up and I said, hey, you mind if I take on a project? And she goes, no, I don't mind, but we can't pay for the power for everybody. And I'm like, all right, we'll figure something out. So we did. We moved it here, and in about 5 hours we had everything here, and we just started back together. I'll keep going. They would come every couple of weeks, or every 4 or 5 days if we got busy and did something, and then come pick the panels up that we completed, and then take them to their property and have somebody come out and paint them.
Another individual who I need to mention, and that's Dan and Dan's father, who was very instrumental in providing his expertise and his machinery to help us get things done. And Dan always was quick to volunteer his dad, and he showed up every time.
The installation was labor intensive. It took a lot of concrete, a lot of holes, a lot of people.
It was a dog and pony show, so to speak, and I was the pony. One welder and 3 guys setting panels, so I was always hurrying up, and that was, I mean, I'm used to that kind of work. It's not a big deal, but we got to give Tim time to get caught up, and I'm like, guys, don't worry about me, I'll be fine.
When it started to go up, interest really started peaking.
The piece itself is very dramatic and is exceptionally nice around the art museum. The part of the fence that is the most dramatic probably is the combination of the stained glass with the wrought iron. And it was the fitment of the circles that created a part of the spiral pattern, but it was the fitting of the glass and the glass work that really sets the fence off.
They're all different. A lot of it was to do with old glass I had, glass that isn't made anymore. Some of the Spectrum Baroques and stuff aren't made, are not going to be made. Everything has to be cut correctly, period. If you're off a 16th, 18th of an inch, it'll never go together correctly.
I think the thing that surprised me most of all was the dedication of volunteers, specifically people who weren't involved in the art association or the art museum, that just wanted to finish the project and they weren't going to let it end no matter what. Richard Santasiero's commitment to the project was number one. The design was more complicated than he thought it was going to be. The materials were more complicated to work with than he thought they would be. The project drug on much longer. His health became an issue. The college chose to end the project. So there were many, many things that happened where Richard could have just said, "That's it, I'm not doing this anymore." But he never did that. And I really wanted to know what kept him going, and his response really surprised me. It was so simple.
You don't give up, not in my nature.
Stan Belka, not affiliated with the Art Museum, not affiliated with the Art Association, and just jumped in with 2 feet.
I wanted to see it finished with the stained glass on and the lights and the way it was all presented to the town council.
If you happen to take a look at the very last panel in the corner on the property, there's words on the bottom of that panel, and that pretty much sums it all up. Like I said, in this day and age, if you don't have funding for something, there's so many that would just, in a blink of an eye, walk away from it. But when you give somebody your word, that still means something to me. It's got a bond to me. I know nobody does business that way anymore, and I can see why, but if I tell someone something, I'm a man of my word. Integrity means a lot to me. I hope everybody enjoys it, and it inspires some younger people to want to do something along the same lines, or even greater. That's what I hope.
It's so hard to see, I guess, what the potential is. The whole issue with our social fabrics. I'm hoping that the fence may be somehow an opportunity to realize that some bigger and better things can happen.
I hope that it brings people together, not just to look at the fence, but to come in and see what's inside too. Art has this therapeutic power, not only for the artist who makes it, but for those inspired by what was created as well. Things that inspire us and remind us that the world is a more rich and full place than we could have possibly imagined. And I think the world is a better place when we remember that.
I love it. I love what it symbolizes. Someone cares, a total transformation, pride, but it definitely is a work of art, every bit of it, and it symbolizes a lot of effort by a lot of people who, willingly or not, gave a lot of their personal time without pay. There was no remuneration. It was the pride of having accomplished something like that, being a part of it. And there were a lot of us. But the favorite time I had was the good time that Larry Patterson and I had. There were things that he could not do anymore physically, but he could point to where something went. And I think Stan Balka even made a poem about that. I think there's a picture around somewhere with him smiling and holding a grinder, just smiling into the camera, working hard on a steel panel, and it's not plugged in.
Part of the slowest part of the project were the actual circles, and that required such a tremendous amount of skill that there were several that got put together that were rejected because they were kind of looked like a potato chip, you know, kind of wavy.
Like I tell people, I said, you're gonna go into this, you get this pattern you want to do, and you fuss and you do this with it and you change that and you do all this. You get it all done and you show it to somebody and they say, "Ah, that's nice." I said, "That's what we're headed for."
Well, if there's nothing else, I gotta get Mom home.